tutti, benvenuti al terzo dei nostri dialoghi sull'innovazione. Assalamu alaikum, rahmatullah wa barakatuh, marhaban bikum fi hiwaratina hawl al-ibtikar. هذا لقاؤنا الثالث. Good afternoon, welcome to our third dialogue on innovation, organized with the Embassy of Italy and with the cooperation of the other Italian diplomatic missions in the Gulf region. Why these webinars? Because we fully believe that culture, in order to be truly formative on an intellectual and moral level, requires the physical presence of the individuals. This belief has been reinforced in the last few months when the enormous help we have received from technology has proved to be a unique resource, unable, however, of replacing the real cultural experience and less than ever to enrich it. Today's meeting is entitled Live Art and Events, Irreplaceable with a question mark. With this title, we want to emphasize two key concepts. On the one hand, life, which is a complex set of situations and social relations, and on the other hand, place, the physical space in which things are, happen, and transform in relation to other points of reference, like museums, art galleries, concert halls, all places conceived for human beings so they can attend them and share in them their cultural life. Our first guest speaker today is Greco, Egyptologist in the University of Leiden, current director of the Egyptian Museum in Turin. This is the oldest Egyptian museum in the world and the second most important after the one in Cairo. Greco uses the web a lot. We have appreciated his director's walks, virtual tours inside his museum. Dr. Greco, during the pandemic, with the help of the web, people have attended theater performances, concerts, or, as in your case, guided tours of museums from their homes. But we are all looking forward to visiting them in person again. Why? What are we missing? Please.
Well, thank you, Director. And I want to go back to the two words that you used, life and place. Well, an archaeology does everything he or she can to reconstruct the life of the Asian people that left us the only memory we can have, which are the objects. We study the objects in order to reconstruct the biography of the objects, but through the biography of the objects, we try to make connections to the people that created those objects, used the objects, forgot those objects, and those who rediscovered them. And actually, when we think about the role of a museum, we also realize that the museum do not only preserve those objects, but a museum is also a place of distraction, because a museum took those objects from their landscape, from the place where they originally lived. So you asked me, what are we missing when we're not in a museum? Well, first of all, I could give a very simple answer. We are missing the place, because a museum itself is not neutral. A museum tells a story in a different ways. A museum is not a neutral container. And we see in Europe, for instance, in the last 6 or 7 years, the most important Egyptological collection reopened. And starting from more or less similar objects, we are telling very different stories. So a museum interprets the stories, gives his ideas, his translation, his understanding of ancient lives. So first and foremost, you are missing the place, because the objects in that place, they're telling their story, is in a story of life. But then you are missing something even more deeper. You are missing what we call the agency of the objects. Anthropologists and archaeologists have worked a lot with this concept of the agency. The agency is the influence that an object has on us all. And it might differ. So for instance, I can approach an ancient Egyptian coffin, trying to get the understanding of the ritual, the funerary text, trying to understand how a ritual was working in antiquity. But some other else can be attracted to that coffin because of its beauty, because of its artistic value. Some others might consider quite impossible to find themselves in front of an object that has survived for thousands of years. So I really think that the agency is what makes us queue and stay in a queue for hours before getting a museum. Is the excitement that we get when we are in front of a work of art, of an object of ordinary life, when we finally see it. And if the web helped us in a moment where museums were forced to do something they couldn't normally do, we couldn't be in direct dialogue with the people, it's very nice to know this. Now, while we are still in the pandemic, but we are trying to go back to our normal life as much as possible, that people want to be back in the museum, that having a virtual tour is not enough, that being in front of the objects gives you all the emotions and also intellectual tools that a virtual tool will never give. And this, I think, is something that should make us think about what is the relationship between materiality and immateriality. Even before the COVID-19 pandemic, there was a huge discussion about how much museums are sustainable. Will we see a future where we put all the objects in the storerooms and we make virtual tours and we don't need museums anymore? Well, actually, the reality seems to contradict. And you know, something that we have noticed in our museum, which makes us incredibly surprised, and we are studying the phenomenon at the moment, after the lockdown, the public going back to the museum is much younger than before. I used to complain all the time that we miss normally that range of people from 20 to 40s are not normal visitors of an archaeological museum, but now we have more than 20% extra visitors of this range of age. And it seems that people after the lockdown are even more eager to interact with the objects. So I do think that the agency of the objects remains central, that the place itself has an agency, and that agency doesn't end because an object tells its biography, and the biography of the objects can be told only after you do in-depth research, for instance, archaeometrical research or whatever, and the research develop with time. So those fragments of memories from the past will always have new story to tell us, and that's why museums are of vital importance even for contemporary society.
Thank you very much, Christian Greco, for this brief but very, very rich contribution, and for introducing us to the concept of agency of the object, which is very important. Now, our institute, like the other Italian cultural institutes in the world, was going to be a bridge between Italian culture and the culture of the hosting countries. So we keep looking for opportunities to carry on our mission in an intercultural perspective. In this meeting too, we had the chance to combine the points of view of intellectuals coming from Italy, from the UAE, and from other Gulf countries. Among our Emirates guest speaker, Faisal Al Hassan, General Manager of Warehouse 421, a very well-known art and design center in Abu Dhabi, recently reopened since March. Faisal Al Hassan, during that closure, you did not stop working. Among other things, you have launched a COVID-19 relief fund for artists. You have launched a residency program, a podcast initiative, and you pushed ahead the annual Salama bin Hamdan Emerging Artists Fellowship exhibition. What is your point of view on our issue today? Please, Faisal.
Thank you, Aida, for having me today, and thank you for choosing me to be amongst this illustrious panel. I'm truly humbled, and I'm looking forward to hearing from everyone and learning from their experiences. As you know, if I'd like to just start by explaining a little bit more about what Warehouse 421 is and what do we do. We like to think of Warehouse 421 as a Creative Commons. It's dedicated to emerging creative practitioners and those who are interested in the arts and harness it as an agent for inquiry, for education, and for growth. We are about to celebrate our 5th year in November, and we look at Warehouse 421 existence of necessity. Today, the UAE art ecosystem is more robust than ever before, with a record number of exhibitions and public programs. The opportunities for showcasing local and regional talents are flourishing. However, most of these opportunities come from two distinct groups, the big ticket institutions and the commercially focused market. While galleries and auction houses and institutions continue to drive the local and regional interest in careers in the creative fields, we recognize that there is a very little room for emerging practitioners to try things out. We saw a need for them to have a place, a safe place where they can make mistakes and learn and grow from these experimentations. As such, we built the space that is Warehouse 421 today. To achieve this mission, we kind of look at our impact engagement in various audiences and in various ways. Obviously, we have the on-site engagement, and we also look at our digital engagement. And if I'm to answer the question very, very briefly, is live art and live events replaceable? No, they're not replaceable. Are they going to continue to be the same? Definitely, yes. Definitely not as well. If you look at the visitor experience in any art institution in December 2019 and compare that to what an experience is going to look like in December 2021, it's definitely not going to be the same. The way we look at the digital engagement in our programming, we try to be very, very particular about it, and we look at how to make sure that this digital engagement is not a replacement or a simulation to what is the physical experience is. The physical experience remains sacred for us. It remains the cornerstone of our mission and the way we work and the way we engage with our community. However, with the changes that we're seeing today, with the readjustment, the social readjustments that we're seeing, we start to look at the digital component as a complementary component to the way we work. The way we start to look at the visitor experience now starts from home, starts from their engagement with our social media platforms, with our website. And this is where you have to start to engage with the audiences and gain their interest in the work that you do. The linger time, as we reopened, we started to see very positive engagement from our visitors, from our community, coming back to the physical space. But also what the pandemic and the closure have taught us is that there are a lot of opportunities for us to continue to engage with our community online. It's definitely not the same. It does not replace the physical experience, but it allows for more longer engagement with the audiences, allows a deeper look into the work that we are presenting. It allows for people from different parts of the world to engage with what we do, and bypasses the duration of a program and the space constraints of that program. I don't think we should look at technology and the digital as a replacement for the physical experience, and I don't think we, as institutions and creative spaces, we should not kind of detach ourselves from the digital advancements. Otherwise, we would be left behind. I think we should harness the digital advancements, find clever ways and creative ways to work with them, and to make sure that they always come back to enhancing the physical experience in the space.
Very much. Thank you very much, dear Faisal Al Hassan, for your contribution, for your insights. Now, I want to remind something, which is that back in the 1935, a German philosopher, Walter Benjamin, wrote that even the most perfect copy of a work of art will never be able to replace the unique existence of the original at the place where it happens to be. We have with us Bartolomeo Pietromarchi, renowned art critic, director of MAXXI Arte, the National Museum of the 21st Century Arts in Rome. And by the way, this museum is housed in a beautiful building designed by the same Zaha Hadid, the same architect who designed the famous Sheikh Zayed Bridge in Abu Dhabi. MAXXI has also been closed to the public for several months, and immediately after the reopening, Bartolomeo Pietromarchi stated in an interview that the use of digital tools will continue after the pandemic, even though, he said, I quote, "I am sure it will not replace the physical experience of the museum." Bartolomeo Pietromarchi, can you comment on this last statement for us?
Yes. Hello, everybody. I'm very pleased also to be here and in this talk. And yes, of course, we did a very, very big program during the pandemic through the net because we already had a very important online community before. So in that case, we just had to continue and maybe did more programs in that way, but we were already very, very strong on that side. So what I said that it was impossible to replace the physical experience of art starts from, I agree with the space of the museum itself, because as you underlined, Zaha did a very, very special building, this building of here in Rome, which is already a very strong and extreme spatial experience. So already the building, once you're coming, it's a very sensual, I would say, a very extreme experience of the spaces itself. And the other very important difference is not only towards the visitors who are experiencing these spaces, but also the producer of which in a contemporary art museum are the artists. So we work almost with 90% of living artists. So in that case, the living artist most of the time come here and put his relation with the space already with the production of the work of art. So this is a very specific difference with all the other museums, because once you live and you work with the artists that produce the work site-specific, in some way you're just having an experience that you cannot, absolutely you cannot have in other way. So what we are building very much is this sense of identity also not only for the art community, but also for the city and of the rest of our visitors that comes from abroad. Identity means that you come here and you have a sense that it's not just a museum here. It's something that you find a lot of different things. For example, we have this very special square out of the museum, which is inside the museum, but is open to the city, that during the summer has been a very, very important place, because a lot of families, a lot of people who didn't have another place to go came here with this idea of having absolutely something very special and a sharing experience, a cultural experience that it's absolutely important in this, especially in this time. So in some way we had a sort of giving something else just of the art experience, something that goes beyond, and it makes the museum a real cultural a reality.
Thank you, Bartolomeo Pietromarchi. Grazie mille, mille, mille. From art exhibitions to music. Umberto Fanni is Director General of the Royal Opera House in Muscat, in Oman. Before, he was Artistic Director all over Italy. For example, the Teatro Lirico of Cagliari, the Arena of Verona, the Teatro Lirico of Trieste, and under his lead, in a couple of years, the Opera House became, in Muscat, became a destination for opera lovers around the world. And I don't think I'm exaggerating if I say that it is to Umberto Fanni that we owe the spread of an opera culture in Oman and in the GCC region. So thank you very much for being with us and for offering us your contribution today. Please, Umberto Fanni.
Thank you very much, dear director. I wish to thank the Italian Institute of Culture of Abu Dhabi for the invitation, and you for this interesting initiative about the dialogues on innovation. And I wish also to say hello to the distinguished guest speakers that you invited at this session, and also to the audience. As you may know, the Royal Opera House Muscat is a new building, only 10 years life, that it was inaugurated in past 2011 in Muscat, that is the capital of the Sultanate of Oman. It's a particular building, it's a particular opera house that now it's classified between a real opera house and a performing arts center. What does it mean? That initially we were inviting all artists, companies, guests from all over the world. And since I began this job in Royal Opera House Muscat 6 years ago, I strongly wanted to change the model, because it has no sense to invite everything every time, but also to produce. And this is the destination that the Royal Opera House Muscat will have in the future, hopefully, inshallah, as they say here in Muscat, and in the Arab countries. And I wish also to go through the theme of this session, that obviously is a very interesting topic, is live art irreplaceable. I have to say that at a crucial time in the 21st century, with the global dominion of COVID, those of us who love the arts are called upon to reflect on the value of experiences art life. Most of us would agree with Walter Benjamin that you mentioned before, that in its essence, live art is irreplaceable. Nevertheless, live art is currently being mediated on a scale not seen before with cameras, audio recordings, and internet devices. I prefer to focus my remarks on the performing arts, and especially on the experience of live music in its operatic and orchestral forms. With the worldwide suspension of attendance in theaters, you know perfectly that in most parts of the world, all the programming were suspended. Recently, some theaters opened their activities, but with social distancing. So, because it's a different spaces, obviously, from, for example, a museum that can more easily manage instead of a theater that obviously has seats and it's a very narrow place. And as I said, the worldwide suspension of this attendance in theaters, live streaming is appreciated by many opera lovers. While they adapt their sensibilities to circumstances, such opera lovers don't simply make do with the mediated experience. They naturally bring to bear memories of live performance, while imagination enriches the online experience. The positive reception of streaming today and the success with HD screenings of operas in movie theaters speaks obviously to the power of modern mediums in the replication of live performing art. In the present age of omnipresent technological mediation with smartphones and the advancing emergence of artificial intelligence, people are increasingly receptive to mediated substitution of live experience in the arts. And they are also receptive because of the comparative ease and convenience. That means that no need for tickets, reservation, dressing up, travel, parking, or, for example, social encounters. But what are they missing? Benjamin speaks of the aura of live art, uniqueness that stems from authenticity and from the physical placement of art in a special cultural environment. But the value of live art goes beyond authenticity and context. It offers shared communicative interaction that motivates performance while it inspires and thrills audiences emotionally and spiritually. Live performing art, as you know, offers a magically real spiritual experience that leaves audiences with a deeper sense of humanity, of the wonder of human capability, and the comfort of communal connectivity. In a recording or in a film, a live performance remains fixed. There's no aura, no real life, and nothing in the actual performance will change in response to the listener. When an orchestra senses audience engagement, they perform with greater enthusiasm, igniting increased audience response. As the mutual effect intensifies, it can engender a rapturous standing ovation with heart-bursting moments for both the musician, obviously, and audience, moments that last long after the performance. And for some, this can be a life-changing experience, as, for example, it was for Puccini, when he first experienced a Verdi opera, and as it occasionally is for young Omani people when they first experience live performing arts at the Royal Opera House Muscat. Benjamin also emphasized the importance of placement in time and space, of the uniqueness in the cultural experience of place. Live performance of opera and orchestral concert comes with the intimacy of the enclosed theater or concert hall, the beauty and atmospheric quality of the space, and the enhancing effects of lightings and also acoustics. Patrons are in presence of others who share the love of live performance. Together, they feel the excitement as musicians arrive. They experience the majesty of a full orchestra on stage, the immediacy of musician in the pit, and the fascination of watching music in the making, and the spontaneous joy of rewarding performance with the applause. With live performances, there is a sense of freedom and involvement. It's not a camera that guides you to see and experience or influences your response. It's your own interest and impulses. Today's mainstream technology has limited ability to produce artistry and atmospherics with authenticity. While the world's emerging virtual technology will go further, it's hard to imagine that they can ultimately match the inspirational authenticity and sheer joy of live experience. And to conclude, I can say that the reality is that we live in a world where, with or without pandemic, the technology will continue to be used in the replication of live art, and with increasing sophistication and effectiveness over time. Nevertheless, it will remain true that live art is irreplaceable, and that while it can be supplemented by technological replication, live art will never be displaced, as we'll never stop loving life. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Umberto Fanni, also for reminding us about the emotional experience of the applause. And so a big thank you to all speakers and audience. See you in October on Tuesday 13 on fashion and the senses. We will listen to Pamela Berry, art director of La Repubblica Fashion Magazine, to Chiara Tronville, fashion journalist, to a spokesperson from Unusual 1976, a modest street style brand in Milan, and then to Budreya Faisal, fashion designer in Abu Dhabi, and finally to Amal Raisi, fashion designer in Muscat, Oman. Thanks to all. See you soon then.